So, I'll be extremely real with you, but Scout isn't actually that bad. Not unless you're playing modes outside of Easy and Molten mode before the rework. But honestly, Scout is still a pretty solid choice for the average new player. And with Scout's extremely cheap cost, makes him a lot more reliable compared to other early game towers. Sure, there are a ton of other options, but Scout is one of the cheapest out of all of them, but not the greatest in the entire game for cost efficiency. And on another side note, Scout can obviously be used for stun baiting some enemies like the Warden due to his insanely cheap starting cost of 200 cash. But though, his stats are actually not that bad for a beginner tower, but as I've mentioned, Scout is extremely cheap. So you're most likely able to place 2 Scouts minimum on the default modes. But please do note that Scout could be getting a potential rework or buff along with the future Molten and Fallen mode reworks, so expect anything I'm saying here to become outdated. So Scout may not be scouting for so long. A base level Scout does 0.83 DPS, but the damage alone is just 1, which is fair for a starter tower to say the least. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that Scout's fire rate is 1.2, along with the cringe range being 12. But for the case of level 1, Scout only gains a minor fire rate decrease of 0.2, which doesn't sound as bad as you think, mainly since the price for this upgrade is 25 cash, which is tied with Demoman for having one of the cheapest upgrades in the entire game. Though, level 2 awards Scout with a major change, featuring the addition of being able to see hidden enemies. It doesn't seem like the greatest change, but it's a core essential to most of TDS. But I almost forgot to mention that Scout also gained 1 damage and has a slightly bigger range, but the upgrade cost is 250 cash. But hey, don't be too bummed about these small changes that Scout gains, as Scout has now doubled his damage once again, piling it up to 4, while also decreasing his fire rate by nearly half of what he had in his previous level by 0.4, and Scout gains a fairly huge jump in DPS, going from 1.98 to then having 6.58. But wait, there's more. For the final level of Scout, this dude makes a massive improvement of more than doubling his DPS, increasing it from 6.58 up to 16.23. But what got Scout to make such a huge jump? Well, Scout gained 1 damage. Nah, I'm just playing with you, cause Scout had his fire rate be beaten the absolute crap out of in half, which is the main reason as to why Scout even got this powerful. He even beat Sniper in levels 2 to 4 in terms of DPS difference and cost efficiency. But remember, Scout is placed on the ground, while Sniper is placed up here, And Sniper's, well, kind of built for a different purpose. Well, yeah, the dude has lead eating and flying detection, but remember, Scout will never give you up. Scout will never let you down. Scout will never run around or desert you. Scout will never make you cry. Scout will never say goodbye. Scout will never tell a lie or hurt you. Which is why we're gonna have a preview of how Scout would really perform in-game. We've already taken a proper look at Scout's actual stats, so it's very obvious as to how new players would want to see how Scout performs in real time. And the map that we'll be picking is U-Turn. So let's just show off every single Scout level in-game against a normal match of pre-reworked Molten mode. As for level 0 Scout, spamming this dude can easily allow you to excel through the early waves of Molten, but it's all fun in games till the hidden spawns. But that is actually why our common sense would tell us to really upgrade this dude to level 2. Oh, and level 1 in general is already pretty good for the price, so if you want to get level 1 Scout, then go for it. Now, only the clueless people will argue that level 3 Scout is irrelevant compared to mindlessly spamming base level Scouts, as the cost efficiency along with the DPS jump from a level 2 Scout is absolutely massive. And no kidding, level 3 Scout is still pretty good against the normal boss, definitely not the best, but it's enough to make a fair impact. But no, these huge DPS jumps only apply to the last 2 levels of Scout, and speaking of the last level of Scout, this dude can still dominate within the heat of Molten mode. Sure, he won't last long if you pull up terrible financial choices like what I did here, but please remember though, that there are a lot of better options. But okay, we get it, Scout is cheap, so it's no surprise that he could hold a fair ground for cost efficiency when compared to other early game tower options like the Gladiator. But quite a few of the issues Scout holds are that his DPS alone is far too low to deal with the tougher enemies that Molten decides to spit out. so it's obvious that this guy will start to fall off and fall in real badly. But let's avoid dissing my boy Scout too hard, as a reminder for you all that this dude is the man that carried us all the way from the start. Although, Scout's underpowering presence alone is surely enough to overwhelm a huge wave of our normal defenses, but being able to deploy this guy a lot earlier compared to most early game solutions is what makes Scout shine a bit more, I guess. So Scout isn't a terrible alternative to much early game solutions. Though, if you are an experienced player, then it would be fairly obvious to most that you should not utilize Scout once better options are introduced. But well, what's the strategy for this guy then? It doesn't seem like we could do much, all thanks to how the Scout was designed for. But the TDS wiki has pretty much gotten us covered here, as normals should normally never be a problem for our fellow Scout. But my take on how we'd use this guy is kind of just centered around spamming level 2s. Mainly since it is quite easy to forget about stealth enemies that love to walk past your defense, and doing so can also open room for future upgrades. And not to mention how easily accessible hidden detection is for Scout. But despite Scout's short range, you should normally never see this as a problem, as you can micro Scout without a doubt. But I suppose you could still use some supports such as stalling towers along with the more popular choices by players, which are the Commander. Being able to give towers a fire rate decrease as a passive buff, along with an ability to decrease the fire rate of nearby towers by a much bigger amount, and the DJ, providing significant range buffs that can really make a difference with mostly shorter range towers, as well as passively being able to give discounts on later upgrades down the road. So having an airy Juggernaut plus support combo like this could be pretty deadly if you play your cards right, but not every tower will work well with supports like these. Although, you'll most likely ditch Scout before you even get these support towers. But hey, pretending that you'd be a new player watching this video, I'd say it's a good call to know about these towers beforehand. And for the fun of it, I'll be putting Scout plus supports against the current Molten boss in Patient Zero. And well, let's be real, Scout will absolutely eat the Gravedigger alive, along with Suffering Guardians, so Scout can't really do much in Fallen. But well, the results aren't the worst. I mean, taking a look at how my Molten round went, Scout managed to stay strong, taking quite the toll on Molten boss's HP. But considering I had a medic around, his stunts didn't really mean much. Although, I still think it is possible to solo Triumph Molten with just Scouts. I haven't tried it out yet, so if you want to, you can go and attempt it yourself. But for Patient Zero, I won't lie, but I had a massive skill issue within the duration against the Scientist. For starters, the incoming zombies seem to have screwed over most of my potential DPS for Patient Zero, so I quickly realized my mistake here, and used one of Commander's abilities to summon the APCs. Now, I probably should have done this a lot sooner since, well, I was only really meant to put Scouts against Patient Zero himself, not everything else that I have to put up with, so it was mostly a mistake in my favor. But don't worry, to prevent some of the APCs from dealing great damage to Patient Zero, I actually replaced the Commanders, although some of the APCs did actually end up staying. But though, the run was mostly looking a bit cooked. Considering my massive mistake during the start of the fight, I had no other choice than to use a nuke. Now, Scout obviously isn't the best tower by any means. His extremely low DPS against a 100,000 HP boss was not too surprising to say the least. But for a starter tower, his DPS isn't the worst, nor is it the best. But although, I won't lie, seeing his history, I'd say he's come a pretty long way. But Scout will, and always would, continue scouting.